I really truly wholeheartedly believed in podcasts, and because it came from a passion point, I think that really came through. When I was talking to investors, when I was talking to podcasters, when I was talking to partners, it just almost seemed like, right, this guy really believes in what he's saying. My name is Basel Anabtawi. I'm the founder of, or I want to say co-founder of Rising Giants Network. And Rising Giants Network is a podcast company aimed to build immersive podcast experiences in Arabic and English for the Middle East region and beyond. That's
Amazing.
pretty good. That's the first time I do that.
And what made you jump into this business? Where did you see the real need?
Well, it came from a passion point, if I'm honest. I've been a podcast head for quite some time. I started listening to podcasts back in 2015, and then a couple of years in, I started my own podcast called Basel Meets, where I just met interesting people from all walks of life. I had people who had no one knew, just had a good story, all the way up till to Slash from Guns N' Roses. So it's a quite diverse guest list that I had. But because I was one of the first mover podcasters in the region, it's really helped me get a lot of traction within the local media and businesses and that kind of thing. That, oh, this podcasting is picking up, and there's some local guys who are doing it. But I've always have had bigger ambition, and I've always personally wanted to do my own thing for the longest time, and I've tried so many things, but like nothing really picked up. But with this one, I think because I had my passion towards it, and I found that there was space there. Like, I look at podcasts today um, where video was 10, 15 years ago, and just at that precipice, where it's about to explode, but just not yet. So I always think timing is is the biggest factor about starting something. And I thought the timing was right, that podcasts will explode. They've already exploded in the US, they've already exploded in Europe. It's just a matter of time before it gets to us here in the Middle East. And it is in Saudi Arabia, it is in the UAE, it is in Egypt. So it's already starting. So we thought this was the right time to do it. So we found the right partners, and we thought, this is the proposition. This is what we want to build: immersive, narrative-based podcasts in Arabic and English. And then we started this thing back in beginning of 2020, in the midst of lockdowns, and it worked out. So far, so good.
Perfect. And you took the sort of leap of faith coming from a big corporate. I see you were at Red Bull before
Yeah.
running the business. So obviously quite a steep learning curve going from a corporate to a startup. So what were some of the key things and learning points you took from that step?
Yeah, you know what? That's a good question, because I always think about that. When I was in a corporate job, I had one job, which is I looked after what we call in Red Bull programming, content programming. So Red Bull has Red Bull Media House under it, and Red Bull Media House is a company that obviously wholly owned by Red Bull, but we sort of, all that cool content you see coming out of Red Bull, that's produced by Red Bull Media House. So my job was really to know what content's rolling out on our channels and what type of content we're producing. So I've always been a content guy, but my job was just that. Like, I knew that was my job, and it's good. And I loved it. I loved working for Red Bull. I think Red Bull's the greatest brand in the world, and I loved working for that company. It was a really hard decision for me to actually say, all right, I'm out, because I was doing really well there. Like, I had a very good connection with the global team and with the local team, and it was good. But then when you made that switch, it's almost like you jump into this world of chaos, and you gotta, and there's no like reporting line. It's you, man. Like, you gotta decide, so that you just organizing that world of chaos, it's actually kind of exciting, because you're building it, and when you start seeing results coming in, it's you kind of get that sort of sense of sense of accomplishment, if you will. So it just going from something super streamlined into something that's really chaotic, and then sort of like putting multiple hats on was the challenge, and that's the biggest difference. We're hiring people, and then we're producing shows, and then we're structuring a company, and then we need to make money, because before I wasn't making money. I was just like sitting there making sure content goes up. But now I need to make sure we have a revenue stream coming into the company. So like now I have to think about making money, and I've never thought about that before in my life. So that I think was the biggest challenge for me.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where you're suddenly expected to be an expert in everything. And it just can't
Yeah.
be the case.
Yeah, it helps to be the joker of all trades. That's something I guess I felt like, oh, cool. Well, I can adapt myself to do that. That's so yeah. I guess you start discovering new talents. Like, oh wait, I never knew that I could, sell something. I honestly never knew that I could sell something. But I knew that I could talk. I knew that I could have conversations with people, but I just never liked selling things to people. I hated it. In fact, I remember being offered a role in a company that I really wanted to join, but it was a sales job, and I was like, I don't know if I could be good at that, and so I never went for that company, even though they had a great offer for me, but I never went. But now I learned the hard way that hey, this is something I need to do, and something I feel like I don't want to say I'm good at it because I'm not a millionaire by any stretch of the imagination, but at least I'm getting comfortable with it.
Yeah, and I think it's such an important part of the role of the founder because you've got to sell, whether it be to customers and clients, but also the vision to team members and to investors and so on. So, talk to me a bit about that process, approaching investors. What did you have to have in place beforehand, and what did that look like for you?
Yeah, I think for me it was. I think you got to really believe in the vision yourself. Like you got to believe in what you're selling, and I really truly wholeheartedly believed in podcasts. And because it came from a passion point, I think that really came through. When I was talking to investors, when I was talking to podcasters, when I was talking to partners, it just almost seemed like right, this guy really believes in what he's saying. And I think that was, I think, key for us to sort of like close in on investors. And look, we had multiple conversations with different investors, and they were all healthy conversations, and even though like we ended up with one investor, doing the full thing, which is great, but we, it was also disheartening or discouraging when people said no to you, like, yeah, we'll see in 6 months, we'll see in a year, like prove yourself and then we'll see, which is hard because it's like, well, well, we need money to prove ourselves, and that kind of thing. But I think the fact that we kept persevering and one door shuts, we open another, and when something opens up, it encourages us to keep moving and not sort of like get disheartened by the no's, um, but it's that belief, is that unwavering belief in the image, in the vision, in the type of shows that we were building. I just knew in my heart that even if someone said no to me, I can't agree with your no, like I still so much believe in this thing. And I think the results that we're getting today from our shows, I think it shows that we are getting somewhere, and we'll get there, I hope, sooner than we want.
Mm. And what are the real benefits and drawbacks of, you mentioned you have a sole investor rather than a handful, whether it be angels or crowdfunding or whatever. What are the real benefits and drawbacks you've seen of going about it that way?
It's interesting. I think there's obviously there's pros and cons to each. For us, it just helped us focus on the business rather than focus on raising. So the fact that we raised the full thing from one investor, well, it's actually not one investor, it's two investors, if I'm fair, because we have Barry Kirsch Productions and Triangle Media coming in to fund us, and Barry Kirsch is instrumental to this because they're the ones who offset all the recording costs on us, whereas other probably companies in podcasts, they have to pay a hefty price to get studio time, and we don't have to do that. So I think making sure that we have two strategic partners that not only add money to the equation, but add strategic value to the growth of the company. We know that the kind of connections that Triangle has, and that's something that we really believe in. That really helps us, at least in development of the business. So I think it's two things. One is making sure that we're funded properly and we have the runway for the next 3 years to make sure that we're producing the shows that we need to produce and hiring the people that we need to hire. And two is making sure that we have the right strategic partners and not having too many people sit with us in this pie. Like just, there's two strategic guys that we have to check with every once in a while, who have given us that runway that we need to take. It would have been nice for us, I think, to get an investor that's really known in the VC environment. That would have been nice to have, just because it kind of gives you that financial credibility. But obviously, when somebody else comes faster knocking at our door, we have to answer. So at the end of the day, our core business is telling stories, and no matter who the investor is, as long as we tell those stories and we build these audiences, I think that's what people care about at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's the investment meant for you? So obviously you mentioned you've got the comfort of having a bit more of a runway, you've been able to cover the studio time, you don't have to worry about that and so on. But what's it meant in terms of the team and company setup and that side of things?
Yeah, I think most of all, I think it's a boost of confidence and a validation to your idea. That's really important, because that's sometimes you get really disheartened and frustrated that this thing is not growing as fast as you want it to grow. And so when you get some kind of like outsider belief in your idea, that's really nice. Now, we did run for about 7 months with no investment. So it was self-funded. It was obviously we had an investor, but he's also a partner. So we ran that for a while, and that was really important for us because we didn't want to reach out to any investor before we had results. And so we did have results, and we maximized results with the least amount of investment possible. So and we showed what we could do with that certain amount of money, and how much runway we did for ourselves in these 7 months. So that, I think, went a long way with the investor. In terms of that investment, what that means for us is it helped us hire people. So like we understand and we recognize that in order to become a serious player, we needed writers, we needed graphic designers, we needed sound engineers to be with us. So that was really important for us to do. Also, we recognize that we need to reach out to podcasters, or no, not podcasters, well, podcasters and voice artists. And that's a budget, right? To reach out to voice artists and making sure that we have the absolute best voices doing our podcast, that's going to cost us money. So the fact that we had that investment allowed us to approach these people and get these people to work with us on these shows. So I think that's really instrumental. And I think the main thing for us is that sort of structure in place. It's kind of getting the company to run and getting these shows up and running. And I think it's so important at the end of the day. What's the output of Rising Giants Network? The output are these shows and these stories. And are we pacing ourselves well? How many shows are we releasing a month? From our existing shows, how active are they? What kind of download rate are we getting on these shows? What kind of marketing are we doing? What kind of PR are we doing? So all that stuff can only become possible if we have this runway.
Yeah, absolutely. And tell me a bit about your role within the business then, and how that's evolved throughout the growth you've had.
Well, I assumed the role of CEO. I laugh when I say that because like it's just such a big title. We're just a startup, really. So, but I guess somebody's got to do it. But when you say CEO, it's like, all right, well, you got to do everything still. It's not a Forbes 500. What I'm doing right now is I'm leading on business development. I'm leading on ideation in terms of podcasts. And I'm leading also on sort of working with my partners on crystallizing the output that we have. These are the main areas where I'm involved. And then, of course, my other partner, Bashar, Najjar he's our sort of head sound designer, and he sort of focuses on making sure these podcasts sounds like top-notch podcasts and quality output is on par with international shows. At the same time, is something that Apple and Spotify and Deezer and Anghami would accept on their platforms to and be proud of those shows on their platforms. So also I work on many things like podcaster relationships, making sure that these guys are signing agreements with us, making sure that we're protected in that sense, and they're protected. They also have their their rights preserved. Make sure that we have a very consistent stream of revenue coming into the company. It's tiring stuff, man, but it's also super rewarding, and it's something that I completely enjoy doing. Like I was telling somebody yesterday, sometimes I remember something at 11 in the evening and I was like, oh, I need to send this email, and I send it out. But if I was still working at Red Bull, for example, there was no way I would like do that, because that's like working after hours. Like, no, I'm not going to do that. But with the Rising Giants Network, it was, I do it with pleasure, because it's something that's fun. And I look forward to the emails that I get. Ooh, who emailed me today? Who wants to interact with my company today? Which is really cool. I think that's something that if you have that passion point for what you're doing, the idea that you have, I think that will never turn to that sort of tough, churn, I don't know, like a lot of people like to say that, we're working really hard, we're not sleeping, we're this, we're that. But I think when you have that passion for it, it's not that bad.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And what's next for the business then? What are the big goals over the next 12 months or so?
Releasing, just going out there and releasing shows and building audiences, releasing shows and building audiences. We have a very big slate of content coming out until the end of the year. Very ambitious slate. We're making sure that all of that is released and all of our audience, and we start building audience groups. Because the most important thing for us is, yes, revenue is important for sure, but the more sustainable way to build this business is to make sure that we have shows and we have audience groups that are continuously engaging with us and not sort of drop off after one episode. No, these guys are listening to the full series. We're getting consistent downloads per month. And that's, I think, what builds a sustainable podcasting business.
Perfect. And for those listening, where can they find out more about Rising Giants Network and yourself?
Yeah, you could go to risinggiantsnetwork.com. You can go to our Instagram page, Rising Giants Net, and our Twitter page, Rising Giants Net. And then, you can see all the shows that we have in there, and you can search them on Apple Podcasts. From the English speaking, audience, I'm assuming that's mostly your audience here. Where we have Legendary Rock Stories. It's a show about rock and roll history. The first season's about Metallica, so if you're a Metallica fan, check that out. Season 2 is coming out next month. It's going to be about Guns N' Roses. Then you have Our Darkest Day, English podcast, coming out on the 15th of March. And that chronicles the life of the survivors of the New Zealand terror attack. So it's like what happens after facing such a tragedy, and we tell it through their eyes. And that's something coming out on the 15th of March.